I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Our focus this week is George Washington Carver National Monument and a special year, the 75th anniversary. Joining me, representatives from the monument, James Heaney, Randall, Becker, and Gayle O'Hare. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the invite.
And it's a big year, 75th anniversary. You have a lot planned this year, year-long celebration.
Oh yeah, well, it's a very special year. It's the 75th anniversary of George Washington Carver's passing. He passed away on January 5th, 1943. And a couple months later, in July of 1943, George Washington Carver National Monument was established. So it's the 75th anniversary of both Carver's death and the establishment of the monument. So it's a really big year for us.
So we have the establishment of the monument, you have the dedication, the growth throughout the years. There's a lot of things we can cover in this half hour today.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So let's start with the background. You know, I guess for people who aren't familiar, how that idea came about, that we would like to have something recognizing George Washington Carver.
Well, it was really a grassroots movement that began while Carver was still alive, actually, which is very interesting. Spearheaded by a local man from Granby named Richard Pylant. He got a lot of support for establishing the monument. And of course, there were a lot of other organizations that jumped on too, such as the St. Louis coalition of the NAACP. There was a lot of congressional support. Harry Truman was a big supporter of the monument. So just a mere couple of months after Carver passed away, the monument was established.
And of course, part of the National Park Service. This is national recognition.
As part of it's the first national park dedicated to an African American, and the first national park dedicated to an individual that was not an American president.
So historical steps right there, getting things in our own backyard here in Southwest Missouri started in those times and tying things together.
Absolutely.
So the idea to the concept, and I know you have some pictures, and I know the audience loves to see pictures, so I think we'll kind of have pictures up there while we're talking so they can understand what we're seeing. Some planning went in between 43 and the actual dedication, when you actually had a facility to dedicate.
Yeah, it took about 10 years before the park was actually dedicated. And several thousand people showed up for that moment, and we captured a few of them in photographs.
Okay, let's look at some of the pictures as we talk along here then. Some of the pictures from the dedication, some of the history of what we have.
Okay. This is from the 1953 dedication, I believe.
So they're gathering, and that stone that has the plaque on it is still part of your park.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The dedication plaque is towards the beginning of the Carver Trail.
So it's still there. So as we go through, we'll just click through these and look at the next picture. Speeches were given that day. I mentioned it was a very momentous occasion. A lot of people came to gather.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a very diverse crowd as well.
And you have, of course, being a national monument, you had national attention that day. It's not every day
we sure did.
The U.S. government unveils a new monument.
Harold Ickes, the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, was there. And there in the photograph, you can see a ranger on the left.
Right.
I believe that is Robert Fuller. He was the first park historian.
Okay.
African-American gentleman. Served the park for quite a long time.
And some more speech and presentation. Then we see the National Park logos.
Yes, you do.
People posing, and a lot of people getting together, not only locally, but national people coming in to support this event. And crowd shots.
Yeah, and you can see it's quite a crowd.
Right. So people gathering that day, and so a lot of speeches, a lot of presentations, and people, if you're watching this, you're going to recognize some things that are still there today as we go along to some other slides. Let's look at the next one that you have, sorry, the presentations. Some work that went in, not only did you have the land and the people tying about, the birthplace and the childhood home, looks like you have some archaeology and some planning going on here, construction, things that were happening at the time.
That's correct. Every year we have, every year have an archaeological kind of, not a dig, but some research done there at the park with ground penetrating radar, and that was an example of one of the early digs, it looked like.
Yeah, early excavation, I'm going to say in the mid-1950s.
Right.
So
to try to narrow down where the actual birth site, where the cabin actually was.
Which you now can identify in the park when you go there. You
correct.
say this is where it was at. So this is some of the work
In that general area.
That general area,
yes.
right, and tying that together. So And this is, it says 1960 entrance. So the park entrance, you've had the
from 1963.
1960. So
Or 1960s.
all right.
Old car there. Here's a choir from an early Carver day.
So once the park was established, you immediately started having Carver Day presentations and those observances.
And still do.
And
Still
still
do,
do,
right.
exactly. And I'll talk a little bit about this year's Carver Day in a little bit.
So another gathering, it says Agricultural Day.
Agriculture Day, 1958.
So
Does that say?
time tying those
Six,
together.
right.
58. And then more
There's-
recent, 2006. Tell me
Yeah, the
about this one.
dedication of the Carver Prairie Drive, which is along Highway V as you approach the park.
Right. So having the name for it for identification. And the Carver House here, 1952, I think that says, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now, this is the house where Moses Carver lived after George had already left the left the farm. However, George did come to visit on a couple of occasions, and this is where Moses was living at that time.
Right. So they were.
So you can see the restored home if you come to the park.
That's what the house you see when you take the trail. So
Exactly.
People take the trail walk
Exactly.
today. Right. And the visitor center.
Yeah,
Early
there's-
visitor center.
There's the interior of the visitor center from the 1960s.
Yes, good retro look.
Yeah,
Right.
all modeled according to the Mission 66 initiative.
Right. So we also have a more modern picture here, the opening of the grand opening. I guess you had an addition that within recent history.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. This is taken in our multi-purpose room on the lower level. That's where we host a lot of our events. And the park ranger is Lana Henry. She has served us so well over the years. She has served well over 40 years at Carver in different capacities. Extremely talented and dedicated young lady.
And the cutting of the ribbon, I imagine, at that same ceremony.
Yes, yes.
Starting the new facility. So and then your logo, which we also had on a cup in front of us.
Yeah,
but
this is
explain
our
the logo.
75th logo. We're real happy with it. There is a graphics wizard. He's become kind of like a rock star in our Midwest regional office. His name is Matt Turner. And he does a lot of social media and a lot of graphics for the Park Service. And he submitted about 10 possible designs for our 75th logo. We like them all, but this one really blew us away. So
And people are probably curious, is that his actual signature at the bottom?
yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's Carver's signature. So he did a great job with that 75th logo, and get used to seeing it because we're putting it everywhere. We have it on our cups, we have it on
shirts and everything
posters.
else you want to see. Right. Now here we have a picture of the bust. It says 1953. So
Yeah, this is also from the dedication. And the bust is rather interesting. At some point, it was painted bronze, which really was not the proper treatment for this type of artwork. It's meant to look like stone.
Okay.
Okay. So
So it
for
obviously-
years, for decades, in fact, it was bronzed. Just last year, we had our conservators, Russell Marty and Associates. They removed the bronze to bring it back to its original appearance. So when you come out to Carver now, you can see how it actually looked at the time of the dedication.
Right.
And it's just, it's really amazing because all that bronzing was covered up so much fantastic detail in the bust that you can now see.
So now we can see it as originally. And of course, it's a
Yeah.
popular place for people to pose. And we go on to other pictures that we have here in the park. Cemetery's obviously still there, but this is an early day of the cemetery. Then you
Yes,
have
it is.
The family cemetery there.
Yeah. Now, of course, George himself is buried in Tuskegee, but there are family members of the Carver family
Right.
and local people who are buried in that
Cemetery that still exists. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the visitor center, obviously here, or the early pictures.
Early picture of the visitor center.
And there are some people once again in the Carver Museum Visitor Center, and it says 1960 viewing the displays.
Yes.
So we've been sharing the history of the center for a long time, and this looks like sharing the history with youngsters. Field trips have been a big part of what you've been doing for many years.
Yeah, it's a great photo.
And then a ranger working today with a group. So, you know,
And who's that ranger, Randall?
Don't recognize that one.
Okay. I thought it was Emily.
Yeah.
And then we have Robert Fuller working with visitors, so a lot of demonstrations, explaining things. Looks like he's in a area where you've planted. Have done some planting there, perhaps. And
gardening.
Maybe some kind of agricultural demonstration.
Right. So I bet it was, you know, going back just through the archives, finding these photos. You know, here we have Superintendent Bill Jackson, Carver Birthplace Association members, support throughout the years from the Birthplace Association. We'll go on to another one. And of course, here we were talking about restoring. This was just recently.
Yeah, the same conservators, Russell Marty, last summer, I believe, working on the dedication plaque.
Right. So it is existing, and then we have touch-ups to the Carver Boy statue.
And that whole area has been changed now too. We have more of an auditorium-like.
Setting around the
Yeah,
statue. Right.
it's really, if you haven't been to Carver, it's worth coming back, you know, if you haven't been in a couple of years, because there's been a few changes, including that Boy Carver area now has this really nice amphitheater setting.
So you can have a group gather there around the
Exactly.
statue.
It's also more wheelchair accessible too.
Of course, right here we can see the work you were talking about, and then even just some of the basics, planting the trees, maintaining the grounds, that you have a lot of people. And Gayle, I know you're here as a volunteer. There's a lot of volunteers who do these types of
certainly
things.
We're lucky.
Yeah, we have both paid staff and our dedicated volunteer force. Working on the park, keeping it looking nice.
Right. And then working on the trails. The trails, like you say, you've renovated those over the years. Wheelchair accessible. Is there people able to make their way through the paths?
And in fact, just probably any day now, hopefully, we're having some work done on our picnic area to make it considerably larger for one, but also to increase wheelchair accessibility.
Great.
So we're always looking to do infrastructure improvements to meet the needs of our audience.
So as the park has grown and developed throughout the years, you're serving different types of different audiences, different people. You have to adapt to the future, as you say, as well as
Correct.
looking back at the past.
Stay relevant.
Do you have any numbers on how many visitors come to the park? Have you statistics along those lines?
Yeah, the last couple years, we've had over 46,000 visitors, which for a small park in the middle of a rural area, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think a lot of it has to do with the programming
Yep, a lot of programming. We
that
offer
your rangers and volunteers are developing, and a lot of the social media work as well.
yes.
Great. Now you have programs throughout the year. We're going to talk about some of the special things this year, but I know you have a whole staff of rangers who really keep things going and have special events and things.
We
planned.
do. We're a very talented team at the park, both staff and volunteers, of course, offering natural, cultural, recreational opportunities out there for the community members. And we've got a great year planned, and we encourage everyone to come out here and either discover or rediscover the park again. You know?
Now, looking at your website, as you mentioned, social media, there's a lot of things going on, even something called Coffee with Carver. Just kind of an informal gathering to learn?
Yeah, that's been going for a couple of years now, and it is a third Thursday, 10 a.m., and usually we get an older crowd coming in, and we'll do a ranger discussion, ranger talk, and then a hands-on activity at the final half of the program.
A lot of times we see like the picture you had of the youngsters going on field trips, but it's something for people of all ages.
Yes.
And I imagine you're working as a volunteer, you're seeing families, people of all ages.
That's exactly the truth. And I always encourage them, if they haven't been there since they were in second grade, it's time to come back. So really hope they will. And as Jim just mentioned, it really is an ongoing, improving, encompassing so many people. And it's a wonderful place just to come.
Now, you do have a program coming up in February. I saw a news release just as we're recording this program, a History of George Washington Carver National Monument program for people.
Right. We put together a slideshow we saw part of today, and our de facto historian, Ranger Curtis, will be doing that on February 4th and the 25th.
25th,
both
right.
on Sundays at 1 p.m.
Okay.
And he'll go into the establishment and history of the monument in detail, and then offer any kind of answers people may have to questions they have.
I mean, you had a lot of people involved at the beginning getting it started, and I imagine have you had a lot of longtime volunteers who have seen it growing throughout the years, or people with the Birthplace Association who remember the early days?
Well, Gayle would be one. Just one. A lot of others, too.
I think, as he just mentioned, the ongoing programs with the school groups have always been successful, and And I know Rand introduced some nighttime star programs, and so I think we kind of go from dawn to dusk, and even after.
So, a lot of opportunities, and when people, the role of volunteers, so share some thoughts, because obviously you're limited to the number of rangers you can have, paid staff, but volunteers must really play a big role in helping you do what you need to do.
Oh, definitely. We could not do what we do without them, that is, without a doubt.
And I think within saying that, there are so many programs that would fit so many people. We tried to do what we are most comfortable with. My husband and I really enjoy the school groups, and we do tours, but we have people that help with the history part, that work at the desk, work in the gift shop, grounds. I mean, you can find your niche very easily at George Washington Carver, and you're so welcomed. And as they have just mentioned, it is a vital part of our park.
So if somebody says, I really don't like to stand up and talk in front of people, you've got a job they can
We've
do
got
to
a
help you out.
Or even an event like Prairie Day, which is really volunteer driven. We have
my
like
favorite.
over, I know it's
That's my
your favorite.
favorite.
We have over 100 volunteers just on that day alone, and just incredibly multi-talented. I mean, we have storytellers, musicians, people who do historic demonstrations, crafts, banjo making, just everything on that day. And it's a great tribute to the dedication and talents of our volunteer force.
So that living history aspect is important. People want to
100%.
not only hear someone talk, but they want to see making the soap or
And-
do the
and we
candles,
do.
and you do those
And we
things.
do.
And tie all that together. So volunteers, somebody wants to volunteer, they just call the park and say, well, can I help out? What can
Just
I do?
give us a call.
Tying that together. Great. Well, the Carver Birthplace Association, we saw that in a few slides mentioning, so big support of what you're doing as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And really, without CBA, we never would have been established. CBA was originated with that grassroots organization to establish the park. So they actually predate the National Park Service involvement at Carver.
So a lot of those people are volunteering and helping you with all those different programs that
Yes.
are going on.
They also run our bookstore. And in addition to that, they do some fundraising. And they are working on restoring the school that Carver
in
attended
Neosho.
in Neosho. It was called the Neosho Colored School, and it's where Carver received his first formal education. And of course, scores of other African Americans received an education there as well. So they're working to restore a real vital link, not just to Carver, but to the Black community in Neosho.
So that type of work outside the park is tying things together. The
Oh,
community and the park
absolutely,
coming together
absolutely.
and working things together.
Fantastic organization.
Well, you've had a lot of emphasis over the years, I know, on reaching out to the community, whether it's educational efforts or programming and so forth, and youngsters being an important part, not just field trips, but I understand that you have an art and essay contest that they can give them a chance, some of the youngsters, to express themselves.
That's correct. We have, for Black History Month, we offer our essay contest for fourth graders around the region. And this year we have a special theme for the 75th anniversary, which is honoring the past, building our future. George Washington Carver National Monument celebrating 75 years. So that is the theme for the.
So a lot of teachers
year.
can incorporate this into their
Very much.
curriculum and
Right.
then enter these
Very
competitions and so
Right.
forth. So I know information's out there because some of our students here at Missouri Southern have actually produced a public service announcement promoting
right.
it, but gives you a
And
chance for them
Thank you
to
for that.
have their work shown at the park and have
It
their work,
is.
exhibited and tie that together as well.
And they also help with the judging. Your students here help with the judging of the contest.
So a lot of
It's
ties between the
very
community and the
much.
university and people as
Oh,
professionals.
absolutely.
Right, right. Well, you mentioned Prairie Day. You have a number of quote special events throughout the day. You also have, we saw in the pictures, Carver Day. That's still going on, a Carver Day celebration every year.
Yeah, Carver Day, I'm happy to say, has really grown a lot during the last few years. We usually get 1,000 to 1,500 people who attend. And it's a day that honors not only Carver's achievements, but also the establishment of the park. And this year it's being held on July 14th. And we usually have an author. This year we have Gary Kramer, who is really one of the leading Carver scholars, has written several books on Carver. In fact, he had done research at the park. Just a very great speaker, and just really knows and loves Carver. So we're really thrilled that Dr. Kramer could come this year. We also have musical acts, usually gospel or roots music. This year we were very fortunate to get a man named Sunpie Barnes. Now Sunpie used to be a park ranger.
So he's changed a new career.
Yeah, at Buffalo River. He was at Buffalo River for a while, and also down at New Orleans Jazz in New Orleans. And so I know Bruce, Bruce Sunpie Barnes. I know him from way back. But since he left the Park Service, he retired a few years ago, he's become a force in the music industry. He has toured the world with Paul Simon and Sting as well, playing as part of their band, but he also has a band of his own, and he does a lot of roots music, blues, gospel, a little bit of jazz, and New Orleans flavored music. So we're thrilled to have Sunpie Barnes this year.
So that'll be part of the program on Carver Days in July. That's the July.
July 14th, yes. And we'll have other musical acts, and we are looking for a bigger name speaker as well to help us really celebrate that day.
So that'll really tie into the 75 years of having that
Oh,
celebration.
Sure. And we actually have Carver himself showing up. Paxton Williams, the one-time chair of the Carver Birthplace Association and well-known Carver actor. He's returning this year to perform. So we were just so grateful that Paxton
So into character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were just thrilled that Paxton was able to do it this year.
So a lot of great plans falling in place for what's going to happen this year
Absolutely.
and working things out. And throughout the year, I know we saw the trails, but I mean, you're a park that's open 12 months a year. I mean, even we're in the middle of winter, but people can come out and walk the trails, see the museum right now in the wintertime.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
And you can see the different changings of the seasons. I know that you do a lot of work. We saw some volunteers working on maintaining the trails, the greenery and so forth, but you can see the changing of the seasons by take a walk in the spring and see the new life coming back and things like that.
That's right.
And this time of year, it's entirely possible you might see a bald eagle, because it's not as wooded as it normally is. I've been seeing a lot of deer, out in the park. So it's a park for all seasons. It really is.
And tying that, you mentioned the research. Do you get a lot of people who contact the park and maybe they're doing research about Carver and they want to come out and explore or find out what you have as far as historical material available?
Yes, quite often archival kind of requests come out and look at the archives you have to offer and get them set up that way.
So a lot of history still can be researched. There's a lot of things.
Almost every living Carver biographer has been to the park to do research, and some of them, or most of them, have been to the park to present. If not at Carver Day, then at another event.
So when you come up with ideas, is it a brainstorming session amongst park staff and the volunteers? What can we do this year? Maybe add something different to one of our events or start a new event?
This year was brainstorming. We got together in November, I think, and pulled together all these ideas.
And some of them are, time-honored traditional programs,
Right.
and others are entirely new.
They're new, very innovative.
It's kind of neat the last couple of years. Always love the old programs,
Right.
but you guys have developed some new programs too. Coffee with Carver has been very successful.
Yes.
That's a fairly new series.
Well, and we've had Art in the Park with plein air artists.
Art in the Park is a
has really been
fun
fun.
program. Art in the Park is in the spring. It's usually the last Saturday in April. Am I correct?
It's the National Park Week. It's always a week in April, and Art in the Park is going to be the 21st.
So tying into that national observance of parks.
Correct.
And our guest presenter at Art in the Park is going to be Matt Turner, who is the graphics wizard I talked about, who came up with our 75th logo. But if you go to the Midwest National Parks Facebook page, you will be astounded at the quality of his graphic art.
That he's seen throughout the recognition throughout the region and the country.
Oh, yeah. He has kind of become a rock star in the social media world because of this incredible talent that he has.
Now, something we haven't mentioned is people say, well, how much does it cost to go to Carver? You're still free.
It is free.
I mean, people hear about, you know, the news, they say, oh, the cost of going to national parks is going up, but not yours.
No, no. Carver himself said he, paraphrasing here, I can never get a quote exact, but that he would trade all the knowledge he has for the price of a postage stamp. He said, God charged me nothing for knowledge. I just don't charge anybody else.
So when the park was established as it's going to be free and open for people to
It
visit.
totally fits in with Carver's philosophy.
And tying that together. So regionally, you're drawing people from around the region. I know you work with Joplin Convention and Visitors Bureau, different Missouri tourism, trying to get the word out there that we are here, come see us.
Maybe talk a little bit about the grant.
Sure. You mentioned the Joplin CVB. We've been got a grant, and we've partnering with Choice Marketing in Joplin, not only through social media, but also digital media, getting the word out there, what we have to offer here at the park.
So we're watching this on traditional television, but you have the Facebook, you have the website,
Yes,
there's
Twitter,
Twitter ways that people
Instagram.
can find out what's happening.
Definitely.
So thank you, Joplin CVB.
Well, a lot of things to look forward to this year. What do you enjoy the most, Gayle? I'll start with you as far as working at the park.
Oh my, you would ask that question. First of all, I love to be out there. So when you're in a place that you enjoy, we feel that it's contagious, and we get our contagiousism from the children as well, and of course adults. But to see their faces when they go down the trail, and we come around from the birthplace to the beginning of the trail, and there's just this, I don't know, there's just something, and the kids feel it. The minute they hit that trail, they'll go, they just take their breath in, and they just know that it is a special place. And I think with the hardships that he faced, and children do face a lot, and I think when they see that he had that can-do attitude, I think they just feel that they can do it too. And I feel that it is a place that they sense it. They sense that success from him.
So this really must be rewarding to know that you're impacting lives, that
It
the
really
youngsters on
is.
up, that people are
Absolutely.
coming
It
away
really-
from their visit there with something they're taking with them.
It really is.
Sometimes.
And our volunteers range from little young children who come with peers and grandparents, et cetera, to many of us who are a little older. And we just feel that it's part of the legacy to continue from George, because he really felt that I don't like the word owe something, but we really do kind of owe something to others. And that gives us a chance to do that and come away enriched ourselves.
Great. Well, there's so much more we could talk about. I know that people can go to the website and they can go on Facebook.
Please do.
Find out that information. Your calendar of events is posted and very public, so get that information. I'd like to thank the three of you for visiting with us today.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you, Judy.
Fun to share.
Looking forward to following up on what's happening this year. You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week for Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.